News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another tremendous installment from very high above all the puerile and insipid and perfidious forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the fabulous Cowboy State Politics studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Friday. And as it always is on Friday, it's Open Line Friday. That's right, my friends. Open Line Friday on Cowboy State Politics. This is the day where we talk about whatever you want to talk about. You see, normally during the week, you kind of have to be on my wavelength because, you know, it is my show. But not on Friday. On Friday, I put this program and my producer at perilous risk and allow you to just pretty much direct the program however you want. And so if you want to be part of the show, the phone number here in the studio is 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989 is the number that'll get you directly to me. So whatever you want to talk about, go ahead and give me a call. And I see that Ken's got it up on the screen in case you have problems with your memory. Then you can just get it right there. So anyway, give me a call. Now, this week, it is opening week of Major League Baseball. And as you all know, while I am very irritated at my Texas Rangers for losing the season opener, it's okay. It's all right because they did lose it to the Philadelphia Phillies. And my pal Christy down in Cheyenne, I'm sure, is ecstatic about it. So, yes, Auditor Racinas, okay, you've got the first one. You're not going to win it today. And, you know, she did give me a Phillies hat. And we have this deal that I lost a bet, and I can't even remember what it was over. But the stakes of it were on one program, I had to wear a Philadelphia Phillies hat. So at some point, when my Texas Rangers are not playing them, then I'll wear the Phillies hat.
Pick a day off for me.
I know. I mean, that's why the stakes were so high, Ken. Because nobody really, well, except for Christy.
I do have a purple Rockies hat, though, for you.
Oh, God, I'm not wearing that piece of garbage.
Oh, we'll figure something out.
They're still probably going to be terrible this year. But as this is opening week, I thought we should start the program out with a little bit of national anthem antics. Now, the guy singing this, he played George Washington in the play Hamilton. So, Ken, go ahead and play that for us.
Do I have to?
Well, yeah. Go ahead and play this. Yeah, this is great. Well, maybe, kind of.
Proudly here at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. So proud. So
you guys got to see his face. Take it away, Ken.
I don't think you should make fun of him.
No?
And I'll tell you why. Almost the exact same thing happened to me at the rodeo in Thermop.
Really?
Yeah, I had an
It's a hard
opportunity.
song to remember. And
It
it's
is, and
emotional.
there's pressure, and I'm standing out in the middle of the arena, and all of a sudden, brain just hits a blank. I managed to cover it pretty well, but better than he did there.
Yeah, that was...
But I felt for him because doesn't mean he's not a patriot. It just means he's human.
Well, yeah, and I think the point was that, man, you are on opening day of Major League Baseball. You got a stadium full of screaming people, and you forget a whole verse.
That's when it happens, and it's a lot easier than you might think. So I have complete empathy for him. I really do.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that he happened to be the guy that played George Washington in the play Hamilton. All right, well, let's get the program started. We're going to take a call from Donnie down in Cheyenne. Donnie, welcome to the program. How you doing, my friend? You there, Donnie? Maybe if I unmute you. Donnie, welcome to the program. Can you hear me now? Maybe not. Okay, well, Donnie, if you can hear me, go ahead and call back, and maybe we'll get a better connection. All right, so moving on with the program. Unfortunately, that guy singing the national anthem, it was at the Mets-Pirates game. And, it's, like Ken said, it's a hard thing to sing the national anthem. It is one of the hardest songs to sing. And, I'm not a vocalist, nor would I ever claim to be. In fact, I probably couldn't carry a tune in a tin bucket with a couple of speakers and everything resonating around me. But, anyway, so that one, kind of hard. Now, rarely in the Wyoming media, in Wyoming, does the media operate like it is supposed to. And there is one case that I just saw. Well, actually, it's been going on for a couple of weeks, where actually different media companies operated like they should. And that is to compete with each other. And in the case in question is the April Marie Morgenroth case, also known as Marie Hamilton. Now, as you know, this has pretty much been covered.
No relation to the Hamilton.
No, definitely no relation to Alexander
I wondered
Hamilton.
because you put the stories back to back.
Well, that's why I did. Similar names, and I'm sure Marie Hamilton at some point did claim to be related to Alexander Hamilton, except Hamilton is not her real name. Now it is part of her mother's name, but not hers.
See how easy it is to push his buttons.
It is, yeah, it's very easy, and you're good at it. So anyway, the story first broke with a piece from the Cowboy. Now, it's not that we didn't already have the story at the Open Range Record. We did. We were just in the middle of writing the article, and the Cowboy got it out first. And they initially covered, the charges and kind of the 30,000-foot view. And so what we did is we covered the backstory. Who is April Marie Morgenroth? And we went all the way back to her charges in 2007 and 2008 and dug up all of her probably not all of her misdeeds, but a lot of her misdeeds in Arizona. And then we, of course, covered the part about her writing for different newspapers and making stuff up as she went along. And I got to tell you, my friends, this is a real life con woman, but not a very good one. This one here, it is a case where an individual just makes stuff up thinking that she's not going to get caught. Now, there is another piece in Wildfile this morning. Actually, it came out yesterday, but that one is about 10 more felony charges for April Marie Morgenroth. And this seems to be kind of a hot topic. So let's go ahead and try to take another call, and we'll see if we can get this one. So let's see here. Let's try Johnny.
Hey, David, are you guys there?
We are, Johnny. How are you this morning? Can you hear me now? Oh, maybe
David, I don't know if you guys can hear me or not. I'm trying to listen to you, but I don't
Yeah,
there we go.
We can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you. How's it going, Johnny? No, we can't.
Do that
David
again.
or Ken, are you guys there?
Yeah. Hey, Johnny, can you hear me now?
So this is weird. I'll explain later. But when I mute my microphone,
Hello?
we can't hear him.
Yeah, I can't. Apparently, he's not able to hear me, Ken. Yeah, I don't know. Hey, Johnny, if you can hear me,
Hello?
we'll take a break and we'll figure this out, and then we'll call. We'll fix it. So, you know what? We're going to go ahead and take a really early break, and we'll get this figured out, and then we'll be back. So, if you're listening and you tried to call in, give me a call. Wires crossed. Back in a minute.
Is 4, not.
Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics. Hunting season. Right about now, you're off with all of your pals, stalking the big gigantic elk or buck mule deer that you've been thinking about all summer long. And your lovely wife is at home, probably enjoying her time without you. But soon, my friend, all of that is going to come to a screeching halt. And I want you to think about just one little thing. She's able to park her car inside the garage because all of your hunting crap is with you right now. Now, if you'd like the marital bliss to continue, I suggest you make a call to Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They can build you a garage or a barn or any other type of metal structure for you to store all of your toys in so that your wife can continue parking inside the garage. And you can avoid sleeping on the couch for the next month or two. Call Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. Get them to build you a metal building before it's too late. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live. All right, so I think we got her figured out on the old microphone thingy. It never fails. You get some wires crossed and never know what happens. But it's live radio, and so that's what's happened. So if you tried to call in before and you didn't get me, go ahead and try it again. I'm pretty sure we got it figured out. So we're going to start with Donnie in Cheyenne. Let's see here. Here we go. Donnie, how are you this
David.
morning? How's it
David,
going?
how are you and Ken doing?
We're doing good, man. How about yourself?
Good. Hey, I just wanted to call in real quick and tell you guys, first of all, thank you guys for all the candidate interviews that you guys are doing are amazing. There's just so much information out there that, a lot of people don't take the time to read. So having these live interviews that you guys put on it's great access to them. And we get to learn a lot about them. So thank you guys both for that. And then being as, just hitting up a lot of areas that we don't know as regular voters, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, we appreciate that. It's fortunately in this format, we've got time to sit down and really dig into who a candidate is and find out a little bit more about them. Way more than you get with a 10 or 15 minute segment on on live radio. And we've got the ability to, hey, if we want to go longer, we can, or we don't really have any schedule. So thank you for listening. And we got lots more interviews coming. So my screen says you want to talk about our Wyoming con woman. What's up?
Yeah. So a lot of people probably know that I have an obvious vested interest with April Morgan-Roth, because I had dealt with her actually in a court case here in Cheyenne 2 years ago. So there's a lot of stuff that bothers me about this. Obviously, the obvious with the constant lying and whatnot. Now, I do believe that there's going to be more to come over the weekend, and I don't want to say much more than that. I'll
Sure.
message you after the show, David.
Okay.
But with that being said, there's a level of I'm seeing it in the comment sections. It seemed like there's kind of this feeling that people are kind of championing her as kind of like this Robin Hood-esque, kind of character where she's against wind farms and, in the name of good, sometimes you have to sacrifice. And when I see little comments like that, or I see kind of people giving a like or a smiley face that is, I get maybe they're advocating for her, it just makes me think that that's a level of crazy that we haven't seen. I mean, it takes a lot to lie like that. And when you could possibly be a victim of hers, and you're caught in her crosshairs, it's not so fun. So I think it's good that, again, you're doing follow-ups on this, and hopefully we'll see something manifest of this quicker.
Yeah. Now, to be clear, I mean, and just to be fair, everybody has a right to a trial and a fair and adequate defense, or an exceptional defense, actually. But when you start digging into, and again, there's another story out by Wildfile this morning, but when you start digging into a lot of the charges, I mean, it is a crazy story. And I don't know if you heard this part, Donnie, but when I called a newspaper in Nebraska and just asked, hey, I'm doing a story on somebody that used to work for you, and I'm just trying to, verify some facts. I didn't even get the name out of my mouth. And the person I was talking to said, I bet you're talking about Marie Hamilton. And I said, well, yes, but that's not her real name. And then the person I was talking to just started laughing and said, I thought everybody knew about her. But it's what troubles me more than anything is the level of, and again, all you hear is the prosecution side of this, but just the sheer volume of different stuff. I mean, even so much as she claimed to be studying for a Juris Doctorate at the University of Wyoming, and they have no record of any of her aliases ever being enrolled at either the university or their law school. So, I mean, it really is a Wyoming con job.
Mm-hmm. Well, and just like you, David, when I was building up my defense against her in court, I went down that rabbit trail with the website that was posted up by the gentleman that actually was the first person that actually brought this to fruition. And I was on the phone with the Sydney Sun, and a pretty similar conversation that you had with them. They were aware of some things, and then when it was a little too late, she was already done, and then she went to the Torrington Telegraph. So I got these documented phone calls that I was using as a defense to kind of show that there's a habitual pattern there with her. Now, I'll use the word allegedly because I don't want to find myself in a Reed Reisner type thing, but you're absolutely right. Just the level of even just like little things down here in Cheyenne, there was a tragic thing that happened at one of our middle schools here, or junior high schools. And she took the initiative to, again, want the attention for herself and fabricate a lie, and then brought it to a group of people. And instead of just trying to figure things out because I was already onto her, I just called the school principal and verified it through a phone call that the stuff that she made up about an alleged suicide was fabricated. Now, it takes a special kind of person to look at you stone-faced and stand on that, let alone when I go to court with her, for her just to play into these lies in front of a judge. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, this could go sour. This could go south real bad. I hope not, but that's a person that we're dealing with her. Crazy.
Well, it's certainly there's a lot of crazy stories around it, and we'll stay on it for you, Donnie. But I got to run. We're going to take another call. Stay on it, and if you hear anything, let me know. All right, let's talk let's talk to Judy down in down in Casper. Judy, how are you this morning?
Good morning. Nice to talk to you again, Dave. I really missed you last night. I don't think you were up here in Casper at the legislative update for Bill Alaman, Tammy Struck, Tony Locke, Senator Bob Ide. But anyway, they filled us in on some of the bills that did pass. And it was like the 25% off on property taxes. But also that began as a 50 percent tax break. But it looks like if you owned your home for more than 25 years of paying taxes on it, you do get a pretty good break on it.
Sure.
I was really impressed. Yeah, I was really impressed with everybody. I did see Joanne True, and it was really weird because she went over to the table where you sign in and stuff, and she was taking pictures of the names. I don't think that's very cool at all. I think that's borderline illegal. But I wanted to thank everybody that came out last night, Jamie Lean, and even Pat Sweeney was there. Greg Classic from Evansville, town mayor. I counted about 75 in the room.
That's a pretty good crowd.
And that's a pretty good crowd, yeah. I just wanted to say thank you to all of them that did come out. And people, when something like this happens in your area, you need to start attending, because this is the only way we're going to start fighting back against solar farms and wind farms and Wyoming being basically sold out, because 85% of our energy is piped out of state, but yet our rates keep increasing. So
yeah,
that's kind of where I wanted to go with it.
Yeah, I mean that's a hard one. I don't quite know exactly why that happens, but anyway, as it relates to the town hall last night, Agent 29 was there, and he's been giving me some reports this morning about it.
Good. Thanks for calling in, Judy, but I'm a little put out that you failed to mention me. I'm gonna have to go home and rethink everything I'm doing.
He's gonna be rethinking his life choices this morning.
Anyway, good to hear you.
Well, you're just going to have to come up and introduce yourself so I know who you are.
Well,
I was more into my salad there at first.
You heard me talking probably about war stories and other things. I spoke several times, but that's okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, now I know who you are. Okay, I was wondering who you were.
Now I'm in trouble.
Yeah, well, I was wondering when I was going through the photos that I took of everybody, Jamie and Bill and, Ide and Jamie Lean and that kind of thing. Yeah. I was like, who is that guy? I recognized him from somewhere.
I was the weird one.
Well, at least you admit it.
Well, yeah.
Well,
anyway, I just wanted to thank everybody and remind people you need to start attending these things, because they're hitting us all four corners. We managed to kill Radiant down here in Casper, and we managed to curtail the pronghorn down in Glenrock. But now they're after my property again. What has it been 2 years since we beat EG Energy Haystack for 2,160 acres of solar panels right next door to me.
Wow.
And it takes 40 minutes for the fire department to get out here. And you can't put those out with water. You have to use that foam, but the foam's been classified as a carcinogen, so they can't use that anymore either. So if it starts on fire, and the winds we've had out here up to 109 miles an hour, I clocked on my thing outside the door, a simple spark could burn acres, thousands of acres in minutes.
Well, I think that we got to take a hard look at all of these so-called renewable energy projects. And for the record, Judy, I'm not necessarily against them, so long as they make sense and they work, and that the government stays the heck out of it. I got no problem if some private company wants to put up, make a deal with a landowner and put up a windmill or a solar panel. The problem that I have is when taxpayer dollars are used to subsidize it. And, we're picking winners and losers, which, in my opinion, that's a lot of what the Pronghorn Project was. But anyway, Judy, I got to run. Thanks for calling in. Oh, go ahead. One more thing.
Okay. Oh, I was just going to say one more thing that now I don't have a problem with a private landowner kind of thing. I was the person that went through the collector car deal in 2012. Okay, what I do on my property is my business kind of thing. Okay, here's where the problem exists. When you start affecting your neighbors, that's where it gets sticky. And this is about money. These guys at Haystack don't even know where they're going to get their water from. Okay, and what is Wyoming? What is Wyoming's most precious item right now? Can we say water?
Well, and that's a big issue. Definitely this year. We haven't had hardly any snow, so water is going to be a big issue.
It's either water or true conservatives.
Well, and if you think about And if you think about it, where they're putting these solar panels, it's right underneath one of the hugest aquifers. So when they're spraying these panels to keep them clean with their chemicals and stuff, how long before the wells go bad? That's why I say you can do what you want until you start interfering with your neighbors.
Sure, absolutely.
Right.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
So,
All right, Judy, thanks for calling in this morning. I appreciate it. And you're absolutely right.
have a good day.
Yep, you have a good day too. Have a good weekend. All right, if you want to be part of the show, the phone number in the studio is 307-374-8989. Now that we've got it working. There's always something, man. It never fails.
A lot of moving parts.
There are a lot of moving parts over there. Actually, we've been trying to, train somebody up so we can get a co-producer. But, it's funny. They take one look at all the buttons over there that Ken has to deal with, and they run away screaming. I don't know what it is. But anyway, if you want to be part of the show, or if you tried to call in earlier and we weren't able to connect, go ahead and call me back. Again, that phone number is 307-374-8989. All right, let's go to this WyoFile piece that I was referring to earlier, and it's entitled, Wyoming Journalist Faces 10 More Forgery Charges in Alleged Home Buying Scheme. Now, you've got to listen to this. This is absolutely crazy. Now, I shouldn't say originally, but before these 10 charges, she had 9 forgery charges, I think, and 1 perjury charge. So already 10 charges, and I think that the number I added up was if she were to be found guilty on all of them, it would be 65 years in the slammer. I mean, a huge amount of time. But, when you're talking, 5 and 10 years for every charge, and you got that many of them, it sort of adds up pretty quick. But here's what WyoFile says. Prosecutors suspect April Marie Morgenroth, I'm glad they're using her actual name, forged documents showing she was approved for a loan and received a grant through the USDA. A Wyoming journal, let's see here, Platte County prosecutors charged April Marie Morgenroth on Wednesday with 5 counts of forgery and 5 counts of possession of forged writing. Court filings show each forgery charge carries a maximum of 10 years, and the possession can result in a 5-year sentence. Morgenroth already faces 10 other charges for allegedly forging documents. That's what I was referring to earlier. WyoFile's calls, they went to, let's see here. Okay, here we go. Morgenroth, known in Wyoming by her alias, Marie Hamilton, she's got a couple of others, by the way, has worked as a reporter for the Platte County Record Times, the Oil City News, Cap City News, and was the owner and publisher and self-proclaimed managing editor of the 307 Wyoming Sentinel. Morgenroth was also an outspoken figure after News Media Corporation announced last year that it was closing those 8 newspapers. Now, this is where this gets interesting, and normally I wouldn't go through the whole article, but on this one, I don't want you to miss a minute of it. And this is kind of what I was referring to with the media acting as they should, that, each media outlet trying to get their little piece of the story and competing. That's how the media is supposed to work, not supposed to be in it together and all giving you one story. But quoting now, Converse County investigators who assisted with the case found evidence that Morgenroth had forged documents, and listen to this, that purported to be from the Department of Agriculture and 2 companies in an attempt to show that she and her husband pre-qualified for a USDA loan and had been awarded a grant to make improvements to a Chugwater property that they were interested in purchasing. The 2 residents, and I'm going to try to leave out their names here, 2 Chugwater residents had listed the property on JJ Road for sale, according to the documents. Morgenroth told her that she and her husband wanted to buy the property and that they were pre-qualified for a USDA loan from Neighbors Bank. She also claimed to have been approved for a USDA grant to work on the property. According to court documents, she provided the landowners and their realtor with letters from the USDA that said she had been pre-qualified for that loan. One of the documents, dated June 10th of 2025, was titled A Notice of Approval, USDA Rural Development via Neighbors Bank Partnership, states that Morgenroth and her husband had been approved for this thing. Another letter dated November 6th was titled USDA Rural Development Rural Communities Home Buyer Program Second Round Grant Award. Let's see here. Now, during the lease of this property, they were usually late paying the rent. They had trouble providing work reports to them, as was required by their deal. And when she finally did, she provided 2 invoices to the homeowners. One invoice included the name Cowgirl Demolition and Excavation and the company's logo, and showed the firm had allegedly been paid $3,075. Another with the name Pete's Builders Roofing and Restoration, and the firm's logo states the Morgan Roths had paid them $7,890. Converse County investigator Amber Peterson contacted those companies and sent them copies of the invoices. Turns out those invoices were not issued by those companies. Now, they did have their logo on them, which no doubt Morgan Roths swiped off of the internet. But they hadn't issued those invoices at all. Furthermore, the Peach, the sheriff's department lieutenant, he's the guy that we quoted in the Open Range Record article about Morgan Roth, the investigator, contacted the USDA Rural Development Deputy State Director Janice Blair and provided the USDA letters to her. She told Peach that the agency investigated the letters internally and found, quote, no evidence that the USDA had issued them, nor were there any records of Morgan Roth or her husband in the USDA loan or grant program. Furthermore, the USDA Rural Development does not have a program called USDA Rural Development Rural Communities Home Buyer Program, which was listed on 2 of the letters. So not only were they not approved for the grant, the invoices that Morgan Roth allegedly provided to the homeowners were fraudulent, and that program from the USDA never really existed. Additionally, the director said that there was no record of a woman named Susan Allman working for the USDA. The USDA letters were allegedly signed by this Susan Allman, nor did the USDA office exist at the Missouri address that was listed on the documents. That address was a vacant lot. The phone number that was provided by Morgan Roth on these documents to the homeowners was actually a VoIP phone number that went straight to Google. So there are a ton of different things that are happening here. And frankly, this story just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. But I think what it should tell you is how wary you need to be of claims that people make. And it goes exactly back to what Brent Behan was talking about yesterday. Yes, you have to trust and verify. And that's what you should do in all business dealings. You know, there's been a lot of times where, hey, somebody wants to do business, and I tell them, all right, well, once your check clears, then we'll get down to business. But it's this whole case is fascinating. I think that it really is possibly, allegedly, a classic con woman type piece. So fascinating. All right, let's see here. Moving on. This is an entirely different subject, but it's from the Federalist. Settlement stops government from using social media as speech police. Now, there are 2 cases involving social media that are going on right now. One of them claims that social media platforms like Facebook and YouTube, and actually they don't claim, the lawsuit has been concluded with a verdict that Facebook and YouTube are liable for making their platforms addictive to young people. So that's one of the lawsuits that has already concluded, and I'm sure that one will be appealed. But this is another one. The government censorship machine, quoting now, took a huge hit Tuesday in historic win for First Amendment rights. What is being billed as an unprecedented agreement will bar the 3 government agencies killing speech the Biden administration didn't like from pressuring social media platforms from doing so in the future. This case began with a suspicion that blossomed into fact that led to congressional hearings and an executive order that government censorship of American social media posts should end. Also celebrating was Senator Eric Schmidt, who, as Missouri's attorney general, sued the Biden administration for brazenly colluding with big tech to silence Missourians. This is a massive win for the First Amendment and for every American, the Missouri Republicans said. So a couple of things going on here. The first one is that I think that now that there has been a settlement, we can all conclude, as if we all didn't know this already, that speech was absolutely being censored on social media platforms. Now, here's a big question, though. If the social media platform is a private endeavor, that is entirely private and there's no connection to the government whatsoever, if that were the case, well, then the First Amendment doesn't necessarily apply. Because if you read the First Amendment, it specifically says from the government messing around with your right to free speech and religion. But when you have a platform that is in bed with the government, and I think that there's lots of evidence to point to Facebook and other platforms absolutely working with the government to silence conservative speech. Now, I think you have a settlement, which generally speaking means the companies didn't want to take it to trial, which, I mean, I know technically that most of the time in the settlement, nobody has to admit guilt. But I think this one is a good step forward for, free speech online. And when you have a big, giant platform like that, and it's, you open it up to the public and you're dealing with the government, well, then, there's a lot of different things going on there. So anyway, that's good news for free speech. Ken, let's go ahead and take another break. And when we come back, we'll continue with the program. Yeah, I know. The weather seems to be toying with us. 60 one day, 42 the next, and pretty soon, my friends, those 6s and 4s are going to turn into 3s and 2s. Though we all want to avoid it, that white stuff is coming, my friends, and you will be shoveling the walk in it. It's cold, it's unpleasant, and nobody likes to do it. But you could make it just a little bit more comfortable and prevent your feet from turning into a giant block of ice. In fact, you could keep them nice and warm and toasty, and your toes will never even know that they're outside. The rest of you may be frozen solid, but at least your feet won't be. To make all this happen, you just need a pair of socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. They are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. To get you a pair, go to their website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Are you one of those guys that listen to the president just a little bit too closely and now you're tired of winning? Are you getting the feeling that there's been way too many good things happening in our country and you just can't take it anymore? Well, if you are, and you think you should follow Rosie O'Donnell's example and get the heck out of Dodge, you need to call Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She'll make those foreign country living ideas a reality for you. All you have to do is call 307-699-3519, and she'll make sure some freedom-loving, red-blooded American will now live in the home that you no longer want. If you want to sell your house, or if you want to buy one that's way better than the house you have right now, give Rebecca a call. Again, her phone number is 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch
Cowboy state politics is only going to get stronger. This program is only going to continue to expand. Frankly, it's already way bigger than I ever thought it would be. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Make sure that when you follow the program or watch one that you like and subscribe and, leave a comment. Tell me how I'm doing. And even if you don't like how I'm doing, go ahead and leave me a comment. But, I may not respond to those, but go ahead and leave me a comment anyway. Welcome back to the show. We constantly talk about the elites on this program because we really do have two groups of people. There's a group of people that essentially will do anything they can to stay in power. And what I'm talking about are the folks that, they were smart enough to recognize that that conservatism was on the rise. And a lot of this goes all the way back to kind of the Tea Party days and maybe a little bit after it. But there were a number of aspiring politicians that thought, hey, you know what, this is probably going to catch on. They read the temperature of the room. And, maybe they even had some conservative leanings. And then much later, when they got into power, they decided that they liked being there and that they could, manipulate the system in order to try to stay in power. And that's where, a lot of the opposition to any election reforms comes from. That's where, getting in bed with agencies and lobbyists come from. And even down to the party level. So there was that big story on the Open Range Record about that resolution that came up in Sheridan County, the one that would bar anybody who had declared that they were going to run for office from holding a leadership position, or if you were a member of the press. You got to keep those guys out of there. Definitely don't want them in leadership. But really what it was is an attempt to, maintain control of the party, maintain their grip on power, because, a lot of these people are allied, with each other. Oh, look, there's Mark Gordon and Dennis Beitman. I wouldn't know anything about that one, but it's a great example, because Mark Gordon spent an inordinate amount of time over in the Senate the last couple of sessions, which is kind of unusual. Usually, if you're over in the House, yeah, the governor will show up every once in a while, but he doesn't like to hang out in there. Maybe it's being around all those conservatives makes him nervous. But I wanted to show you a good example of who these people are. Now, the example I'm going to show you is from, kind of the more national level and on a television show. But I want you to watch this, and it should really irritate you to know it. So, Ken, play the video that's called Kimmel. I think it's called Mark Wayne Mullen.
Rudy Giuliani might not be with us much longer, but don't worry, Trump's got a whole new generation of thinkers lined up, including his newly confirmed Secretary of Homeland Security, Mark Wayne, Chuck Mike, Bruce Dave Mullen. Maybe Mellon's better. He is the now former senator of Oklahoma. Before he was elected to the Senate, Mark Wayne Mullen was a low-level MMA fighter and a plumber. That's right. We have a plumber protecting us from terrorism now.
What's wrong with
work for
plumbers?
Super Mario.
Nothing,
Why
not a
Mark
thing.
Wayne? But honestly, I mean, if Trump is going to keep picking these unqualified people to run the department, why not have more fun with it? I mean, next time, instead of Mark Wayne, how about Little Wayne for Homeland Security? At least we could get a concert out of it, right? Mullen is replacing Kristi Noem, who was ousted 3 weeks ago and will never be seen again.
All right. That's enough of that guy. But the point being is, how elitist could you possibly be to say that just because in your past you happen to work as a plumber, you're not qualified? And Ken, you said it right. What the heck is wrong with being a plumber?
I represent the trades. I resemble that remark.
You do?
Yeah, I was never a plumber, but
Well,
yeah.
no, you're a carpenter.
But you're right, and I see that down there in Cheyenne. People will look at me sometimes like, "Well, who are you?"
Right. How
many
dare you
boards-
be
How
be
many
elected?
boards did you serve on back in Sheridan County? I went, I went out and made a living and paid taxes so those boards could exist.
Yes.
I don't know.
And typically it's the people that are in the trades that you do want them in office because they're the people that actually generate the tax revenue that government works off
Yeah,
of.
the idea, of course, of a representative republic is that you have representatives of the people,
Yes.
not of one particular layer of the people.
Well, and there is this air of superiority that the other side has. And when I say other side, I mean the Democrats and the Redcoats. So the very liberal Republicans that hang that R at the end of their name so that they can get elected. There is this air of elitism.
I like the term that Chuck likes to use, the insiders.
Yes.
There's the elite, the insiders, the people who are just part of that group, and you come from the outside and you're not to be trusted. You don't know what you're doing. You can't govern, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, on and on. And if you look at a lot of the people that have filed to run for office this time around, not to say that they shouldn't. I think, hey man, if you want to try your luck at politics, go ahead and file. I think the more the merrier. But a lot of them that are these folks that have served for a long time on different boards. And often what we hear, definitely in Sheridan, and I'm sure it's the case in most Wyoming communities, is, what boards have you served on? What experience do you have in government?
How have you helped your community?
Yes. How dare you run for office and not serve on the pool board or the board of the dump? Actually, the board of the dump is a big important one.
That's the one I was thinking of, was the dump board. Yeah.
Well, and it is this, like I said, air of superiority that a lot of these insiders have. That if you aren't part of the government machine, then you don't have any place running for office.
Well, they have, like here in Sheridan, down at the YO Theater, they have these pat me on the back, congratulate each other award shows.
Yes.
And, it just goes on and on and on. And there is that particular, and I hate to use the word class, but it kind of is because I don't think they have much class, but that class of people that fit into that, and they just assume that, I believe, they assume that they're smarter.
Yes.
That they're more capable, they're more connected, they understand how things work. And you little peons, you go out there and you do your plumber's job and send us your checks.
Yes. Make sure you pay your taxes, and how dare you order parts from someplace other than Sheridan? And the other thing that you see with this is if you are one of these people that is outside of the system, you're just the John Q. Public person, and you just want to serve your community and run for office. You think you've got some good ideas. What you'll find is they'll accuse you of not being on one of these boards, and at the same time, they're the very ones that prevented you from being on one of these boards. Now, I can't tell you how many times. And even you, Ken, how many times did you try to get on a board?
Several.
Lots.
Several, and blackballed for various reasons. Basically, they know I'm conservative, so we can't have that.
Yeah, there was quite a while, a long time ago, but every once in a while I'd show up at Ken's house, and he'd be like, yep, got another rejection. Nobody called me about this application.
Well, or I was recommended once by the standing mayor at the time to sit on city council to do a replacement. And of course, that just stirred everything.
Yeah, that didn't go anywhere.
I do sit on a board now.
Yes, you do. A very large board.
I do. Well, it's a small board, but with a large task. But
yeah,
we'll carry that later.
Yeah, but the whole point here is that we have a system that is in many ways run by, a bunch of elites, and and I know that sounds just like something you might get a reply. Yeah, of course you say that because you're not you're not part of the club. Of course you think we're all elites. Well, they are. It's pretty obvious. So before the break, I told you that there were two lawsuits. Now this one, the first one was about the collusion with government and the restriction of free speech. The one that's concluded is a little bit different. This one says that social media platforms are a little bit addictive. It's been concluded. Now it's going to be appealed, but let me just run this through for you. From the Pravda on the Platte. In an article entitled Verdicts Against Social Media Companies Validate Concerns. And I quote, in Los Angeles on Wednesday, a jury found both Meta and YouTube liable for harms to children using their services. In New Mexico, a jury determined that Meta knowingly harmed children's mental health and concealed what it knew about child sexual exploitation on its platforms. Tech watchdog groups, families, and children's advocates cheered the jury decisions. Quote, "The era of big tech invincibility is over," said Sasha Hayworth, executive director of the Tech Oversight Project. Quote, "After years of gaslighting from companies like Google and Meta, new evidence and testimony has pulled back the curtains and validated the harms young people and parents have been telling the world about for years. While it's too soon to tell if this week's outcomes will lead to fundamental changes in how social media platforms treat their young users, the dual verdicts signal a changing tide of public perception against tech companies that is likely to lead to more lawsuits and further regulation. For years, they've argued that the harms their platforms cause to children are a mere byproduct, unintentional and inevitable consequences of broader societal issues or bad actors taking advantage of safeguards. All right, so we got a verdict in the lawsuit, and typically I'm not in favor of a lot of lawsuits that say, well, it's the company's fault. And the one that always comes to mind for me is firearm companies. There's been a concerted effort in the anti-Second Amendment industry, and it is an industry, by the way, to say that, well, the company that made the gun, they're somehow responsible for how the gun was used. Well, of course, that's a preposterous argument. That's the same thing as saying that the company that made the car is guilty of the offense of drunk driving. But in this case, if you are taking steps to make your product more addictive, and the classic example of this is cigarette companies. Okay, there's been lots of lawsuits over the years against tobacco companies that they intentionally made their product more addictive. Well, of course they did. It makes them more money. The question is did social media companies, namely Meta and YouTube, Google, did they do the same thing? And is there some way to create an addiction to social media? Well, I think that there's a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists would say that porn addiction absolutely is a thing. So then why not social media addiction? Now, ask yourself this question. When is the last time that you went to a restaurant or, any public space, really, and you didn't see people doing this? The one that fascinates me is people are sitting at dinner, and you got a couple sitting across from each other, and both of them are on the phone. Well, why don't you put the phone away and talk to one another? I mean, that is the reason you went to dinner.
Because we've been together for 35 years, and we're really tired of each other.
Well, I mean, I even catch myself. You're at dinner, text message comes through, and I read it, and I have to remind myself, okay, put this thing down. You don't really need it right now.
I'll be in my office working on something, and text message comes through, and it's Diane. Easier than getting up and moving across the house.
Well, often Christine will send me a text message in the middle of a program, but that's a little bit different. It's not like she can, walk through the door. Well, I guess she could if she wanted to. But, think about it. How often are you out with your friends and they're staring at their phone and not talking to one another? I mean, and I get it, it's constant communication, constant information, but certainly I think that there's an addiction there. And I don't think it's outside of the bounds of possibility that companies intentionally, manipulated the content so that it was more addictive. And that's part of how algorithms work. You go search something on Facebook or on the internet, really, and I don't know, maybe you're looking for a new fishing rod, and you'll open up social media, And then the next 50 posts you'll see will all be about Fenwick fly rods and Berkeley fishing tackle. And
There's kind of an esoteric thing in there. I guess esoteric might be the word to use. Um, Mankind has always wanted to be God from the beginning.
yes,
Did God really say? But he knows.
you can be
He
just like
knows
God.
You'll be just like God. Well, God is all-knowing, omnipotent.
Omnipotent.
That was hard to say when I was thinking of omniscient.
Yeah, well, whatever.
But anyway, that's kind of what the internet is. Any information, anything you want to know from the wealth of information to man is right there.
Yeah.
And you're constantly aware, you're constantly there. And I think that's part of the addictive nature of it, and it's satanic, is you can kind of be like God.
And the one that kills me, Ken, is sitting in church. You know, that you're sitting there and trying to pay attention to the pastor, and you look around the room and there are people on their phones, or a phone goes off in the middle of church. I mean, didn't you have the foresight to turn that stupid thing off before you walked through the church door? But I think that there's got to be an addictive nature to it. And, you know, even with my program, like one of the things I try to do is get the program in front of the most amount of people that I can, get the greatest amount of exposure that's possible. Now, of course, I don't run a social media platform, but
that's what the Sydney videos were about.
that is exactly what the Sydney Sweeney videos were all about. By the way, I can pull one of those up for you if you would like.
That's okay.
Are you sure? I mean, she's very attractive.
It's okay.
Okay. All right. So let's move on. We haven't had a chance to digest a couple of the interviews this week. So, you know, it's typically what I like to do. Let's talk about it. So, Ken, what did you think of yesterday's interview with Colonel Bien? Retired, of course.
I always get a kick out of talking to him. I think what was significant about what we were able to do, as a candidate, of course, I know really well, usually you get 3 to 5 minutes, you take a couple questions.
And that's it.
Yeah, that's it. We spent an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And I believe I actually made him a little uncomfortable because he does not like to go into his credentials or his past. You know, don't ask him about the ribbons.
Yeah.
And that's all well and good, but I think people got to see a little bit of a side of him that he is reluctant to share. And yet I think you need to be aware of who you're dealing with and some of the credentials and things. Yeah. So we dug that out. We had a chance to be able to dig into things a little bit deeper than we normally do. And that's what I like about this long format interview kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. A lot of the stuff that he talked about his military record. Of course, I knew that he was a full bird colonel, that he ran the base in Guam. But as far as to become a colonel, you just have to assume they have a pretty extensive military record. But really, that's about the level of information that people get. Yesterday, we were able to really dig into that and get a real, what I thought was a really good view of his experience. You know, we just finished talking about the elites in government, and I'm sure that this charge has been leveled against Brent to say, well, you don't have any experience. What experience do you have running a big organization?
Yeah.
Well, there it was.
There's another natural thing that happens in the military among the officers' ranks. You know, everybody comes in as a second lieutenant, and butter bar, we call them. And then they make first lieutenant, usually means that they're going to be a company XO or whatever. Many of them will make captain. And that is kind of the basic career for a lot of officers. And after that, they've put in their 6 or 8 years and they go off and do something else. And then there's some of those that hang on and they become a major. And majors are a mixed bag. Some of them are ones who have kind of Peter principled. This is as high as they're going to get. And then others are ones that are going to go somewhere. And it doesn't take very long and you can start to see them. And by the time somebody actually makes lieutenant colonel or colonel, by then they're a battalion or brigade commander, things like that. they have risen to a level of exceptional. The cream begins to come to the top.
Right.
So when you see somebody who's walking around with a captain's bars or a major's leaf or something, you really don't necessarily know what they are. But by the time they get to colonel and above, this is someone of exceptional talent, someone of exceptional abilities. Now, the military for the last 20 years, those exceptional talents or abilities may have been all political because the military has become very political.
There you go. Well, there's another side of it,
Yeah.
too.
But when you see somebody with that pin on their collar, you know that you're dealing with somebody of a specific gravity.
Well, and I
Somebody
think that
has
that's
ability,
exactly
yeah.
the point that and it's not to say, man, I got to be careful how I say this next part. What I was going to say is that, when you've got a guy with a big bird on his collar, you know you're dealing with a serious individual. And that is not to say that other people in the military are not serious, because I think they absolutely are. But I think that you put it best, Ken, when you said that you're talking about somebody who is, at least the military thinks is of exceptional quality. That, there are some qualities they have that have put them in line to be general. And, it's been a really long time in American politics since we have had a person in politics that is a high-ranking military officer. I mean, of course, the person that comes to mind is Dwight D. Eisenhower. He finished World War II, runs for president, and, boom, elected. So I think that you got a view into who Brent Bean is, and you could tell. And maybe it came through on the interview, but sitting here with him, you could tell that he was reluctant to talk about it. Let's go ahead and take another call. Let's see here. Since we're talking about this interview, people want to talk about it. So let's see here. Let's go with Kathy from Cheyenne. Kathy, how are you this morning? Welcome to the program.
Doing great. How are you guys?
We're doing fantastic. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to touch a little bit on Brent's interview yesterday. I wanted to appreciate Ken asking him to kind of go into a little bit more detail, kind of like what you were just talking about. Brent doesn't like to talk too much about his experience and, tell people that he has that level of leadership that I think most of us are looking for and that most of us want for Wyoming. So I do appreciate you, Ken, bringing that up and getting Brent to talk about that.
Yeah, I think that was probably the best part of it. Too often we just kind of bat around the political issues, and one side says this, the other side says that, but we don't often get to who this person actually is. And I was really glad we were able to do that yesterday.
Thanks for the compliment, Kathy.
I think, no problem. I think like what you said, people, I think around this state, think that he doesn't have that experience. And it could be because he doesn't like to brag about the things that he's done. But I think it's crucial that people hear that, and that, those of us who do support him make sure that people know that, what his accomplishments are. I know that's going to be probably one of the things that's brought up during this campaign, experience and the types of leaders, some of these people that are running for all different offices may or may not have. And I'm a huge supporter of Brent. That's no surprise, I'm sure, to a lot of people. But I do believe that he is the one that needs to be in that seat. And if the people would come together and not allow endorsements or, talk around the water cooler to influence them and really dig into who these people are, I think that people will see that Brent is the guy that we need.
Well, he's very different. All too often, we just see government types that run for governor, and that's certainly what we have now. You know, Eric Barlow has
Yep.
been in the legislature for a long time. Megan Degenfelder, she was superintendent of public instruction. And Brent
Yep.
is, and of course, I don't make endorsements on my show, but
Right.
if you look at Brent, his leadership experience is entirely different than the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not the government insider, which is why you're not seeing a
Right.
lot of the endorsements happen.
Yeah, you'll see his
Right.
campaign uses the phrase a lot of times, he's one of us. And
Yes.
and that resounds with a lot of us because, or resonates, I guess I should say, with a lot of us because we've kind of had enough of the upper crust elitism.
Absolutely.
And you know, part of the reason
Yeah.
that, oh, go ahead, Kathy.
No, I was just the term, draining the swamp. We've heard that, for how many years? And here's our opportunity. I don't want to allude that, a lot of people running for office are swampy, but
There are several.
we hear a lot of we hear a lot of people who don't want career politicians, and this is literally our opportunity. The light is shining right here for us to make that happen.
Well, and I think that Brent has done a great job traveling the state and meeting with, in every little coffee shop and every yesterday he called it meeting in every fire hall. But that's that's the type of politics that wins elections. And I think,
Yes.
a good example is sitting right across the table from me here, that in his last election, they spent a tremendous, well, I guess it was the first one you won. They spent a tremendous amount of money trying to defeat Ken, and he beat him going door to door and wearing out pairs of boots.
Exactly. Yep. And I appreciate that type of style. I don't want people who are just going to show up and do photo ops. And that's what we're seeing with a couple of these people running for office. They show up for about, 20, 30 minutes to make it look good, to let people see that they were there, and then they split. Brent, I think one of you or someone said it yesterday or recently that he will stay until no one wants to talk to him anymore.
Yeah.
And that usually is 2 or 3 or 4 hours sometimes. If he's got to hit the road and get to another event, yesterday he said sometimes he does 5 or 6 events in one day. That's insane. He is a person for the people. Like, he's not afraid to get out there and talk to the people, answer the questions, sit down with you eye to eye. He's not sitting in his basement trying to run a podcast. He's actually out there talking to people and not just there for a photo op. I'm not saying anything about you guys. You guys do a great job.
We're not in our basement any.
Yeah, this wouldn't fit in my basement.
Yeah.
Anyway, Kathy, thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Thank you for listening to the show.
Hey,
of course. Have a great day.
Thank you. It's Open Line Friday, so if you don't mind, I want to touch on something there that deals with this elitism. So it's tied in with that.
Okay.
So I want to tell a little bit of a story that I told last night in Casper.
Okay.
So if you're a combat unit and you're in a combat zone and you have a particular area that you're occupying, you're going to set up a defensive perimeter around you. And everybody in that unit is assigned a portion of that perimeter. And the other thing that you do is you create a reactionary force. And the idea is that if anyone begins to attack that perimeter, the reactionary force, which is a smaller group, goes and meets it head on. And, like in a platoon size group, it might be 10 or 12 people at most. Crew served weapon there, you might have a Modus positioned at a certain critical spot or whatever. So you go out and you meet that force, and that force is designed to slow the invasion, and basically to take fire and to give everyone else time to organize and meet the threat. The life expectancy of someone in one of those firefights is about 6 seconds. I would liken that reactionary force to what the conservatives and what is commonly referred to as the Freedom Caucus, and it's not necessarily one and the same thing. We're that reactionary force. We see a threat and we went and we attacked it. And they are coming at us with everything they've got, with money, with lies, whatever. It is furious, and some of us are going to fall.
Yeah. Yeah.
The life
probably.
expectancy for the people like myself who have stood up and been the point of the spear is pretty short. And some of us, I don't know who it will be, are going to be taken out of the fight. And that's when the real fight begins. Because if you watch somebody go headlong into battle and immediately they get mowed down and the flag falls, it's dispiriting. So are you going to cut and run? Or are you going to run up there and pick up that flag and charge on? Because that's where the battle's won. And that's what this election is about. Some of us have gone out there and been at the forefront and been flayed in the media. And we're being flayed constantly. There's postcards coming out around Sheridan that say all kinds of nice
Yeah, they've sent out a lot about you.
Yeah, and that's okay. And I'm not trying to paint myself as the hero or any of that. I'm just saying I happen to be one of the people that went out and did that. So now, folks, it's up to you. Are you going to let our actions go down in vain? Or are you going to pick up the flag, redouble the efforts? And I say that because a lot more people, we need reinforcements at every level. We need them at the school districts. We need them at county commissioners. We need them city halls. Every level, we need to just flood the zone.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point that we often pay on this show. We pay a heck of a lot of attention to what happens in Cheyenne. And that's just what happens to interest me. I like the back and forth of state level politics, but really, there's a lot more that happens in your community that doesn't get a lot of attention. Yesterday I was at a YDOT meeting, and it was obvious that, there were several people there from the community. Most of them were politicians, but there was 10 or 12 concerned citizens there. And to give you the Cliff Notes version, so going down Coffeen, which is one of the main drags in Sheridan, YDOT has planned to put in a median, similar to the one that's over in Gillette on Highway 59. But the difference is Coffeen does not have 7 or 8 lanes. It's not that wide of a street. It's a 4-lane street. So anyway, but there's several choke points in there that there's a lot of accidents. And so YDOT has decided that they're going to put a median down the middle. The problem is that same street, there are businesses from one end of it all the way pretty much, I would say, the better part, more than half of the street. About halfway up Coffeen, it turns into a residential neighborhood before you get to Main Street. But anyway, they're going to put in this median. And obviously, some businesses are going to have a reduced amount of traffic. Now, what's interesting to me is that is an event, a town hall, a plan that is going to affect people locally. And we tend to pay far less attention to those types of things than we do, who's running for governor or who's running for
national politics.
National
the
politics.
Of everybody's mind, it feels like.
You are far more likely to lose your liberty at the local level than you are from what happens in Cheyenne, and certainly more so than what happens in Washington, D.C. And so we got to pay attention to what happens here. And there are a ton of seats that are open, both city council and county commission, and there's school board, and we have some elected boards. Every community does.
You got to be on some boards. It looks good on you.
Yeah, it looks good on your resume. But let me give you an example. In Hazard County, Johnson County, where I used to live, the board of the dump, all right, not very glamorous, but they handle a tremendous amount of your money. And, you do hang out with trash. However, that is one of the biggest boards, the most influential boards in the town simply because of the amount of money that gets funneled through there. And all right, so no, you're not going to influence what happens at the school. You're not going to influence what happens, at the, I don't know, parks and recreation. But it's important in that there's a ton of money that goes through there. Same thing holds true for, every other county. There are important boards. And these are the stakes that you have a city council here in Sheridan that just recently gave away $500,000 around there of your money to private nonprofit organizations. And they did it they didn't attempt to skirt the Constitution. They did skirt the Constitution about giving your money away to private entities.
They know better about who's deserving of receiving your money than you do.
Yeah.
So they collect it and then they give it away.
Right. So if all of that money, that $500,000, is so necessary to take from you, why is it that they're going to give it away? Or the county does the same thing. And I'm sure in your community that, your city council and your county commissioners give away money too. Well, if those organizations are so deserving of funds, why is it that the people that are on these boards, the county commission, the city council, the board of the dump, why is it that those folks aren't the ones writing checks? Why don't they pull out their checkbook and donate their personal money to that organization? Because they're asking you to do the exact same thing. The only difference being is you don't get a choice doing it.
So they get credit for the gifts, but it was your money.
Yes.
Basically what happens.
I mean,
what we're getting at, obviously, we need people involved in every level. And the way that they discourage that is by, as soon as somebody raises their head up and tries to do something, there's this onslaught.
Yeah,
it's like the crab.
Like they're playing whack-a-mole.
Yeah. Folks, we got to get involved.
Yep.
And we've got to do it now. And that means you.
And here's the way I like to put it. Generally speaking, if you're having trouble finding a candidate to run for, doesn't matter what office it is, school board or city council or whatever, if you're having trouble finding a candidate, maybe that candidate is you.
Yeah, go look in the mirror. There might be one there.
There might be one there. And if not, if you really don't want to be, in public office, well, then you can, help fundraise for, a candidate that you like, or maybe you suck at calling people on the phone, but you can go out and knock on doors. Or maybe you're just terrified to be in public and you don't want to call people on the phone and you don't want to knock on doors, but maybe you can babysit kids for somebody else that will knock on doors.
Bake a pie for a fundraiser.
I'm getting there. Why do you steal my thunder?
I want to get to the next thing.
No, I don't. But the point is that everybody can do something. And if you can't write a check, if you don't want to, go knock on doors, well, maybe you can, like Ken said, maybe you make a heck of an apple pie and you can take that to the next fundraiser. You'd be surprised at how expensive pies get at fundraisers. I once saw a pie go for several $1,000s.
Yeah, and they're not any better than the other pies.
Oh, that's not true. They taste a whole bunch more, whole bunch better. All right, Ken, let's go ahead and take another break, and when we come back, we'll finish up with the show. Oh, it's Open Line Friday. Don't forget about that. 307-374-8989. Give me a call if you want to talk. Are you tired of all the meaningless political drivel floating around right now? Endless commentary that really doesn't have anything backing it up? Do you long for the days of true investigative journalism coming from an authoritative source who really doesn't care how popular and apparently good-looking a politician is? Fortunately for you, that's what I do on Cowboy State Politics. New episodes are published every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and you can get them anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest way is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There, you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles I might bring up during the course of the program. Cowboy State Politics Live, the program you're listening to right now, is broadcast every Tuesday through Friday, beginning at 8 a.m. Pay attention to all of that other block-headed nonsense if you want. Just make sure that you don't miss an episode of Cowboy State Politics. And now, back to our program. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on a Friday, and it is Open Line Friday on the show. If you want to be part of the program, the phone number in the studio is 307-374-8989, 307-374-8989. Go ahead and give me a call. Whatever's on your mind, we will talk about it, or at least we will try. Well, we're into summer sports season. And I'm super excited. I mean, Christine, not so much. But me, I am so stoked about baseball being back. I can't hardly stand it. I am a little bit irritated with a lot of the streaming services. There's been a big controversy about opening week baseball that a lot of teams have contracted with various streaming services. And so you got to subscribe to be able to watch it. And one of the big ones was the Yankees game, that it was only available on Netflix, I think. And so think about this, right? It's the New York Yankees, and it is I've never been in New York around baseball season. I would love to just go to a Yankees game. I mean, I have two favorite teams. I have the Rangers, actually three favorite teams. The Rangers, and anybody that beats the New York Yankees, and anybody that beats the Colorado Rockies. So I would love to go to a Yankees game. Go ahead and say it again.
You have a lot of favorite teams.
I do.
Everybody beats the Rockies.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's on any given day. Yeah. On any given day, my friend.
It happens.
Yep. Even, I mean, my Rangers lost the season opener, which, and in baseball, my friends, everything is superstition.
But what you're saying is true, and I experienced the same thing during the NFL season, is you got to have like 7 different subscriptions to watch whatever you want, and they're not cheap.
No, they're not. And so the one I usually subscribe to, I wish I had an endorsement from these people. I don't, or a sponsorship, I guess is what I was trying to say, is usually I subscribe to MLB Extra Innings. So I can watch any game I want, anytime I want. But it's expensive too. This is, one of those extravagances that Christine doesn't like, but I nearly insist on. But I was trying to subscribe last night, and it is different. There's different streaming services. So this was a big controversy. Now, we also have a little bit of hockey going on right now. And, well, the Nashville Predators, they have a new logo. And again, beginning of summer baseball season, we have this stupid Pride Month. I don't know why we have to have a month to talk about what somebody prefers in the bedroom, but apparently we do. Well, the Nashville Predators have a new logo, and I know that you'll think this is fantastic. Check this out. Oh, there it is. Isn't that special with the rainbow on it? And okay, not so much. It's actually kind of hideous. So from Breitbart News, pro hockey's Nashville Predators are taking a drubbing from fans who are mocking the team for its new rainbow LGBTQZXPWDS logo. The team unveiled the logo at the Predators' saber-toothed tiger head festooned with the gay rainbow colors. The new logo, though, came under immediate attack from hockey fans. As to the latter claim, hockey and its players and fans do not lean to the left much at all. A recent poll found that NHL was the second most red-leaning league in pro sports. The study, the Partisan Registration of Athletes by Sports League, commissioned by VoteHub, examined the political affiliations of pro athletes in baseball, hockey, football, the NBA, whatever the WNBA is, and found that baseball players lean towards the GOP. Still, that support dwindles when looking at other pro sports leagues. Baseball players are Republicans at a much higher rate than our other leagues at 53.7%, while 36.4% identify as political independents. Democrats are big losers in baseball, though, with only 7.8% choosing to be left-wing. The next most Republican league is hockey, which the Nashville Predators are evidently trying to drive away all of their fans and try to turn them to Democrats. Hey, and as it relates to baseball, Ken, do you know why Wyoming doesn't have a professional baseball team?
Well, that obviously Colorado would want one too.
Exactly my point. They would want the same thing. They have to be just like us. So anyway, good luck to the Nashville Predators.
So also, did you hear about the NASCAR thing?
No, what's going on there?
There was a driver that was suspended for using a gay voice. He was mocking somebody with a gay voice, and NASCAR suspended him. And then there's a team that also has the rainbow colors on there. I'm sure they're quite popular down in Carolina.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. Having lived in that part of the country, I can tell you that most people that are NASCAR fans are not exactly all that left-leaning. I mean, the hat that you are wearing today, that phrase originated at a NASCAR event. It did. Yep.
Well, let's go, Brandon.
Yeah, let's go, Brandon. Well, we don't have to worry about him anymore. I mean, he's kind of gone. I wish he would. Well, no, I shouldn't say that.
There's your error. When one falls, 10 more rise up behind him.
That's true. It's true.
And that's part of what I was getting at earlier when I was talking about our side. We need to take a lesson from that. So anyway, I won't get back on that bandwagon.
Yeah, we did kind of beat that horse till it's, a big pile of goo. Now, why is it, do you think, Ken, and I mean, I know the answer to this. I'm just going to ask it. But why is it, do you think, that the Democrats are so opposed to any election reforms?
Be hard to win in a fair fight.
It would be hard to win in a fair fight, and of course, they claim that there is no problem with our elections, and they've moved a step beyond that. In that if the Republicans win, this is the claim, then we will never have another fair election in this country. As clearly indicated by all of the Republican presidents that we've had in the past and the Democrats that have followed them up. Logically, if you have a Republican president and then you have a Democrat president, that would mean that maybe we had a fair election, I would think. Except, of course, in 2020, I still maintain that sucker was rigged, and you can't convince me otherwise. But now the left is trotting out experts, and you see this all the time. We're the experts.
You know what an expert is, right?
No.
A has-been drip under pressure.
Yes, a has-been drip under pressure.
If you can ask about Colorado wanting or Wyoming wanting the data.
Anyway, so there's this historian that he has won a useless Pulitzer Prize, and his last name is Meacham. And he says that if the GOP holds the House, likely that would undermine fair elections. So it's not just if a Republican wins in the next election or if it's the Senate. No, it's only if the House. From Breitbart News, Thursday on CNN's Out Front, I like how they use that word out, historian John Meacham said if Republicans held the majority in the House of Representatives after the midterm elections, they would likely undermine free and fair elections. Host Aaron Burnett said that every candidates frame every election as an existential battle, not just a choice. And this is kind of what we were referring to earlier, that this election might be the pivotal one, or is the pivotal one, that's going to determine which direction Wyoming goes. I think we make that claim all the time. And we have experienced that in our lives, the host said. But now we're at a midterm election that is being framed that way in an era that is, and you're going to see this in the video. But the host goes, the election that is being framed that way in an era that is profoundly unique in its own way. And then this Meacham guy, who again allegedly is a historian, he responds. So, Ken, go ahead and play the video that says, historian, Republicans will undermine elections.
How candidates frame every election as an existential battle, not just a choice. And we've all experienced that in our lives. But now here we are at a midterm election that is being framed that way in an era that is profoundly unique in its own way.
Depends on what is means.
That's true. Listen to him.
Well, here's what's true. Well, many things are true, but for our purposes, I think the vital question is the truly unique virus that President Trump introduced into the body politic is a particularly virulent one. And it is that if an election doesn't go the way you want, it wasn't legitimate. It must have been stolen. It must have been rigged. That's a unique contribution, if you will, to the American political vernacular. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams didn't do it. Andrew Jackson didn't do it in 1824. Richard Nixon didn't do it in 1960. Hubert Humphrey didn't do it in 1968. Vice President Gore didn't do it in 2000. We tended to respect the results of elections. What happened in 2020 sets that existential question for us right now.
Okay, enough of him. So the point is that that Republicans we have introduced a virus. And this is where I wanted to go with this, because words mean things.
2 + 2 is 4, not 5 if you want it to be 5. And this is not to be discriminatory. This is to stand up for language. Words mean things.
Words mean things. And the words that you choose, your word choice is extraordinarily important because the human brain it functions at a level that is far above what you just see and what you just hear. Your mind is making connections based upon the words that you hear. And so when you introduce a word like virus, what is a virus? A virus is a single-celled organism that you can't see, that typically you can't smell, that you have no idea that you come into contact with it. And the most virulent of those that we just experienced was COVID-19, and it went everywhere. And so the virus that Trump that Trump introduced into the body politic, and the other part of it is you can't get rid of a virus. They exist forever. The thing is that we just develop antibodies that combat the virus, and they don't affect us anymore. But to try to characterize Republicans as a virus, it's an attempt. And here's what CNN is doing: they've got an expert on. He says that Trump is a virus, and then your brain says, oh, well, viruses are bad. We have to get rid of them. And to even suggest that perhaps maybe there's a problem with an election, well, that just feeds into it. You see, it's an attempt by the media and the left to create a self-reinforcing narrative that if Republicans win, well, then obviously it's a result of this virus. And I mean, and it's I find this sort of discussion to be particularly disturbing because that's what the left does. They introduce an expert. Expert says Republicans bad, they're a virus, Trump is a virus, and then they just kind of it's like the meme. I'll just leave this right here.
Yeah.
But Ken, how often does the left try to characterize Republican candidates as, lesser than human.
I think the question would more appropriately be how often does the left not do so?
Fair enough. It'd be easier to figure
they-
that out.
It kind of goes back to that elitist discussion that we had earlier, is they just have a particular worldview that they know better. They know better how to spend your money. They know better how to whatever. But
How dare you
whatever.
be a plumber?
Yeah. You can be a plumber, but how dare you have an opinion and be a plumber?
Yeah.
We need plumbers, for crying out loud.
Well, and
We don't want to let them slip through the crack.
And you're right. It does go back to this whole elitism thing. We're the people that know best for you. We're the people that, we should be in power. All of you simpletons, you peasants, shut up, peasant. I'm running things.
Go eat cake.
Let them eat cake. But that's exactly what it is. It's a question of them being, they have to be the ones in charge, and they're the only ones that know how to do things. Now
they know so much better than we about it.
They do. I'm not capable of prosecuting my own life.
What we're dealing here with is clearly what's the word of the unvaccinated?
Oh yes,
What was
the
line?
pandemic of the unvaccinated.
The unvaccinated. Of course, we know better. The problem is so much of what they know isn't true.
There you go. Quoting Ronald Reagan. But it's true. And what Ken is referring to is an interaction that happened on the floor of the House of Representatives during the COVID special session. And that was, if you want to know exactly who these people are, go back to YouTube and go back to that. And I'll have to, what I should probably do is go find the video and post it right at the timestamp so you can just listen to this. But here is Bob Nicholas saying what we're in is a pandemic of the unvaccinated, you peasants.
There is no doubt, from all the medical information out there, that we are in a pandemic of the unvaccinated. If everyone was vaccinated, this pandemic would be gone.
The irony being that the vaccine that Bob Nicholas was talking about ended up not doing anything and probably killed a whole heck of a lot more people than the actual virus did.
Well, it certainly hasn't helped. And just to be fair, I hate saying this, but who started that vaccine?
Well, there you go. Okay.
Yeah,
it was Trump that pushed it through.
Yeah, sometimes we think that this elitist attitude is only on one side. No, it really isn't.
But okay, so let's just be entirely fair about that. So yes, Daddy Trump did push that one through. The difference being, he's not the one that said you're going to get fired if you don't jab yourself in the arm.
That's true, and I think part of what happened, and we kind of referred a little bit to this in the interview with Brent yesterday. When Trump came in the first time, he had to fill a lot of positions. And so he kind of had to take the word or take the endorsement of people around him. And that's part of what I'm getting to, is those people that he was kind of trusting also have an elitist attitude. And
certainly.
And they have this cabal. And so he found out after his first term, you can't necessarily trust those. And then look, when he came in the second time, he brought a whole different group of people with him, a different entourage.
Well, and it's, anytime a new CEO takes over a company, one of the very first things that happens, I almost said country, which that would have been interesting.
Yeah, that was an interesting picture.
But anyway, one of the things that typically happens is a mass firing. That the reason the CEO was brought in is things weren't working very good before. And so the people that are responsible are the ones that are still there. And so a lot of CEOs, they'll just start over. Let's have some interviews and get her done.
That's exactly the point I was making regarding the Wyoming Business Council, is you have a coaching staff that is of a particular mindset, thinks there's a certain way of doing things. We decided that's not the way we're going to do things. You got a clean house.
Well, and look at a baseball team. So if you have a losing season, like the Rockies or the Rangers, they didn't have a losing season,
That's true.
but they didn't do so great last year. The person who runs the whole show is the manager. And typically, and this is probably true of every sports team, but you have a crappy season, the manager is probably on the chopping block. And rightfully so, man. You were the one at the head of this crap show. And Bud Black in Denver, yeah, I mean, under his leadership, Nolan Arenado went bye-bye, which caused me to never again care about the Rockies.
That leadership, though, it may find itself not being successful in a particular culture, in a particular place, and then be moved out of there and go somewhere else and be phenomenally successful. There's a certain chemistry involved and all these other things, but man, how did we get here?
I don't know. It's Friday. That's what happens. And by the way, so since I'm in the folder that has Bob Nicholas sound bites, here's another one from him. And I think if I am right about this, this also came from the special session when they were talking about all the COVID tests. You know, the ones where they jab that thing up your nose and get a swab. Listen to this one.
The nose swab is going to go away entirely because no one is going to take a nose swab if they have alternative of a saliva test. So what we really need to be looking at is not the uncomfortableness of it, but the efficacy of what we're doing and what the tests are.
Yeah. So who cares about it being uncomfortable? And it's, you know, there were, like I say, there were so many different sound bites that were in that one afternoon. I'm pretty sure it was in the afternoon, that it was just absolutely amazing. All right. So we do the most recent government shutdown is over, at least in principle anyway. We've decided that we can fund the TSA because politicians want to get elected and they realize that the super hours long lines to get on an airplane probably wasn't doing a whole heck of a lot of good for anybody's political career. And so Congress has decided that we can fund most of the federal government. That is, all except for ICE. You see, ICE, they're really just kidnapping people. They show up in unmarked vans and they're wearing masks and nobody really knows who they are. And like the brown shirts in Soviet Russia, they show up, grab somebody, and then they're swept off and nobody ever sees them again. And so says Eric Swalwell. From Breitbart News, Thursday on CNN's The Arena. They have so many fantastic names for shows. Eric Swalwell said that Californians fear Immigration and Customs Enforcement might kidnap them off the streets. Go ahead and play this one, Ken. It's a video called, I think it's called Swalwell.
I don't like touchpads.
All right, joining me now, Democratic Congressman from California, Eric Swalwell. He sits on the House Homeland Security Committee. Congressman, thank you very much for being here. You heard the Senate Majority Leader there,
Now,
John
pay attention to her. She's not reading at all.
He's in many ways a legislator. He's playing, and he's looking at the inside game of his politics. He doesn't throw a lot of grenades as these things go. You could see the frustration there. I mean, at what point do Democrats need to look at the compromises that have been put on the table and say, okay, we need to do something?
Well, then he has an opportunity to do what is most reasonable and pays TSA agents immediately, which is to fund TSA and every other component of Homeland Security other than ICE and Border Patrol. But I'll just tell you, talking to Californians all over the state, that right now they fear that you have an ICE that is out of control. You could be walking down Sunset Boulevard. Someone could pull up in a unmarked car wearing a mask and put you into that van. And you don't know if they're ICE. And if you resist, you might be arrested for resisting arrest, or you might be kidnapped. That's the uncertainty and chaos that they have put into our communities. That's why I'm not voting for another penny for ICE. And that's why most Democrats are united in the same.
But isn't ICE funded? It was funded in the big, beautiful bill.
So why don't we just fund TSA?
Well, I mean,
even she's flabbergasted.
Reality that in the offer
all
that
right, that's enough of that crap. But the point is that why should we fund ICE? They're just going to kidnap people. And of course, the Democrats, they would love nothing more than to have a permanent voting block in immigrants. But the flaw in their reasoning is those people have to be, allegedly, have to be citizens to vote, which again, this goes back to their whole aversion to any sort of election reforms whatsoever. But pay attention to what Swalwell said. I know. I'm asking you to listen to Eric Swalwell. But what he said was, I'm hearing from constituents is what I'm seeing. I'm hearing is what I'm seeing, is that they're dragging women by their hair, throwing them into unmarked vans, chasing people through the fields and factories where they work. Okay, so this is another attempt to paint the other side as Neanderthals.
If we gave ICE tranquilizer darts, they wouldn't have to chase anybody.
Yeah, well, I think we should. And again, if you haven't listened to the most recent interview I did with Representative Hageman, she brings up a good point that along I-80, when the sheriff that announces investigations on Facebook was conducting his immigration stops or stopping vehicles, 1/3 out of the vehicles that he stopped were driven by people who were illegal immigrants. 1/3. And he stopped that day. They had stopped, or that weekend, or what, that span of time, they had stopped 100 vehicles, and 1/3 of them were illegal aliens. But, when you have people like Swalwell, of course, I don't think that many people actually listen to him, but they go on, national news shows, and they say that all of this is just kidnapping, and they're going to show up in unmarked vans, and they're grabbing women by the hair and dragging them away. I mean, it's really all just hyperbole, and just absolutely incredible. All right, so a different subject. We just finished with the Olympics, and we're preparing for another one. Of course, in 2 years. But there's this big hoax that trans women can't compete in the Olympics. Have you heard this one, Ken?
I have, actually.
Yeah, there is no way that trans women can compete as men, but except that they can, because a trans woman is not a woman. In fact, it's a man. And so those people can compete as men. From Breitbart News, the corporate media, is deliberately spreading the disinformation that trans women athletes have been banned from competing in the Olympics. Now, this is an absolute lie. And just a quick aside, trans women are, in reality, men pretending to be women. So trans women are dudes in dresses, ergo transvestites. On Thursday, the International Olympic Committee came to its senses and put an end to biological men competing against women in the Olympics. Quote, eligibility for any female category event at the Olympic Games or any other IOC event, including individual and team sports, is now limited to biological females, read the IOC's long overdue statement. So at least for the time being, we've seen an end to this buffoonery, buffoonery being my word, of Olympic-sponsored women battering awarded people that engage in women battering who are awarded with gold medals. But one thing we can always count on when the crazy left is hit with a setback is a robust round of lying from their allies in the corporate media. Since I do not reward fake news with traffic, I'll not link to those headlines. And in this article, you should really go look it up. It's on Breitbart. But here's some of the headlines from the AP. Transgender women athletes banned from women's Olympic events by new IOC policy. That's a lie. Nothing is stopping transgender women from competing in the Olympics as what they are, which is men. From U.S. News, transgender women athletes banned from women's Olympic events by new IOC policy. Refer to what I just said. From ESPN, transgender women banned from Olympics by new IOC policy. Another lie. Refer to what I just said. And it went on and on and on. The truth is, my friends, that you really can't trust what the mainstream Wyoming press or national press or any of them really say, which is why you should pay attention to this show each and every day that it comes on. Well, my friends, that'll pretty much do it for today's installment of the broadcast. Have a good weekend. Don't miss Weekend Update tomorrow. If you missed the Brent Bean interview, I'm going to play that whole thing tomorrow on the podcast. But for now, from the base of the Bighorns, I'm David Iverson, and this is Cowboy State Politics. Have a good weekend, my friends. We'll see you tomorrow on Weekend Update. We'll hear